Dead on Your Feet, Arthur Grant Michaels, St. Martin's Press, New York, 1993. Stan Kraychik Mystery, Book 3, narrator Eric Aust. In memory of Tajana and Andre, with gratitude and respect and love, thanks to the patience and generosity of my friends. Chapter 9, The Tsarina Manquet. By the time I flew back into Snip's salon, neurons all misfiring from the caffeine overdose. It was after 3. Fortunately, I had only one customer on the books, and that was later on, just before closing time. By then, my eyeballs and my fingers would have returned to a more normal state of hyperactivity. Until then, I could catch up on the other work I'd neglected because of my afternoon capers. I prepared myself to explain all this to Nicole to defend my errant behavior, but she seemed strangely indifferent to my absence most of that day. When she came by my office, I related everything that had happened earlier. I concluded the long explanation with a dose of dramatic irony. And so, doll, the upshoot of all my running and around was to find out that Tony Di Natale was already free. "Is that so?" said Nicole, hardly interested. "Branco released her this afternoon." Nicole corrected me. "You mean Lieutenant Branco?" "The same one," I replied. "So now that Tony is free, I guess I can go back to fretting about home and hearth instead of Max Harkey's murder." "Yes, I suppose so," she said absently. Then she got up and gathered her coat and purse. "I'm leaving early today, Stanley. I want to run a few errands before I go home." "Big date tonight, Tal?" Nicole smiled enigmatically. "That's right, dear. Do tell. You take care of business here, darling. I'll see you tomorrow." Nicole was almost out the front door when she turned back to me and said, "Would you open tomorrow? I may be late." "Sure, doll." Then I added with a smirk, "Enjoy yourself." "Oh, I will." Later on, my client, Garrett Wade, arrived. Garrett had achieved brilliant, if limited, celebrity as a cabaret performer under the name Miss Doll. These days, though, he doffed the sequins and pumps for pinstripes and wingtips, and his stage was more likely the courtroom, where he was quickly building a reputation as an effective, if outrageous, defense attorney. Garrett conversed like a talk show hostess, a parody of a woman who can't count to 2 without unbuttoning her blouse. I'd asked him once how the court judges reacted to his strategic use of dramatic, often campy devices to sway that gravest of audiences, the jury. Garrett had replied with a squeal, "They remind me to cross-examine and not cross-dress." The question remained, was he serious? I set him up at my station and began his monthly color adjustment. Ever alert to litigation, Garrett already knew about Max Harkey's murder and had quickly made the connection to Rafik. "Is that hot lover of yours involved?" "Not criminally," I replied. "If he needs representation, I'm available." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Garrett's animated face paused uncertainly in the mirror, not sure whether I meant his litigious talents or the fate of my lover. An awkward silence followed, much like the unsettling hiatus when the wind shifts direction. Then Garrett quickly resumed the conversation, all ahead, full on an entirely different tack. "So how is married life?" "Hardly married," I said. "Why not?" "When already?" I lied. Garrett dismissed my remark with a downward flap of his wrist. "Oh, girl, when I get like that, I just dump the hunk and start dating again. There are too many men around to spend your life trying to understand just one of them." I replied, I wasn't very successful at dating. Besides, I thought, what would Garrett Wade, the reigning queen of the weekend romance, know about relationships? Once Miss Doll Stud picked his nose and wore the wrong accessory, he was history, and knowing what I did about Garrett's matriarchal lineage, the numerous marriages, divorces, alimonies, and flings, one thing was certain, he was his mother's daughter. But whatever his quirks, Garrett always created effervescence around him. A lot of fun and frolic, and for that alone, he was welcome company. In addition to that, all things being relative, he made me feel extremely masculine. which was exactly what I needed, since at that moment Rafik rushed into the shop, urgent and troubled. "Stanny!" he exclaimed breathlessly. "Someone has made an attack on Madame!" Around the salon, the few late-working stylists halted their scissors while they and their customers eavesdropped in morbid curiosity. "When someone grabs center stage, you listen." "It happened 1 hour ago," Rafik continued excitedly. "Was she hurt?" I said. "None! The police are there now." "Where did it happen?" I said. "In the entrance to her building." Garrett Wade chimed in. "Did you scare the attacker off?" Replied Rafik. "Did you rescue the victim, you big strong man?" Rafik's brow wrinkled. "Who is this?" he asked me impatiently, as though he didn't really want an answer. I attempted an introduction, but Rafik grabbed my arm and pulled me away from my station and back toward my office. Once inside, he spoke bluntly, like a military officer during crisis. "You must help. Madame is afraid for her life." "Rafik, this is a matter for the police, not me." "They do not believe her. I can see by their faces and their questions. They think Madame is imagining the attack." "It couldn't have happened at a worse time." "What do you mean?" I pursed my lips, then told him, "Tony was released this afternoon." This is good news, no?" "Not really." Rafik's dark eyes, full of pleading just seconds ago, now smoldered. "Why not?" he said. "She could have been the one who attacked Madame," I said. "Not possible." The fires within him was already kindled. "Tell me exactly what happened." "Madame was unlocking the front door. Someone grabbed her purse and knocked her down." "Did she see who it was?" "She was too, startled?" "Startled, yes." "So she saw nothing?" "No." "Rafik, I still think this is for the police. I agree to help get Tony out of jail, but now I have other things on my mind." "What things?" "You and me. I want to spend time on us." "But Madame is my family." "Not mine," I said. He aimed his fiery eyes at me. "So you would not help her?" "Not when there's danger." "You are afraid, then?" "I'm trying to be sensible." "You're the only person who can help me." "The police can handle it." "Please, Danny, can you talk to her? Just talk. It will help her. It will help me." I heaved a sigh. Lover, lovest. "Rafik, what can I possibly say or do that can't be done by somebody in authority?" "You can bring peace. Madame Ruby likes you. She trusts you." Flattery again. "It worked on others, and it worked on me." "Okay, dear heart. I'll talk to her, for whatever good it does." Suddenly, Rafik grabbed me and pulled me into a strong embrace. With our heads pressed against each other, he said, "I knew you would help. I'll go see her after work. Tell me where she lives." "She is in the same building with Max Harkey." "The Appleton?" I said, pulling my head back slightly to face him. Yes. Madame lives downstairs. She is his neighbor." "Why didn't I know that?" Rafik shrugged. "She always lives down there." That was a curious fact. I nuzzled my face against my lover's neck. "Since I'm doing this favor, will you stay tonight?" "Oh," he wavered. "I am so tired." Was it really tiredness, or was it Tony Di Natale's new availability? "I understand," I said. "It's no wonder you're dead on your feet. I saw how hard you worked in rehearsal." At once, Rafik pulled away from me. "When?" he demanded. "Today, just after noontime." "You watch me." "Yes, it was wonderful." "How dare you watch me?" "Dare? I watched you because I loved you." "I tell you before, do not watch my rehearsal." "I didn't plan it, it just happened. You were so beautiful showing the dancers what to do. I fell in love with you again." At this, Rafik softened a bit. Once more I asked him to stay the night with me. Once more he claimed to be tired. "Be tired with me," I said, despising the begging sound in my voice. "None. I will go home." "Shall I call you after I see Madame?" He nodded. "If you like. Probably I will be sleepy." In whose arms, I wondered. "Rafik, I'm tired too, but still you expect me, ask me, to do another favor for you. I'm supposed to soothe Madame Ravenskaya's troubled mind and heart, and I agreed to do it for you. Well, now, What about me? Stanny, you have a strong spirit. You must help others. I am too weak now. My work takes all my strength. One last time I offered myself. Why don't we spend the night together so I can help you? You will help me if you talk to Madame. Rafik embraced me again, kissed my neck, my cheek, my mouth. Then he left the shop. Back at my styling station, Garrett Wade remarked, "What was that all about?" "That," I replied while trying to conceal the gnawing in my heart, "that was about love." "It's no wonder you hang on to him." "It is?" I finished applying the magic, and that would transform Garrett Wade's roots to a state of absolute blondness. As I brushed the color on, I wondered aloud, why should I run around another Merchant of Mercy? "Do you want my opinion?" Garrett said. "Sure," I said, catching his eyes in the mirror. "If you don't do it, what will happen?" "Nothing." "There's your answer, girl." "Didn't you just tell me to dump him and start dating again?" "Not him. Any other old hunk, but not him." Garrett Wade had obviously been vanquished by Rafik's charm. I finished his hair and set him away, humming. The renewed color and cut would surely impress tomorrow's jury. After that, I was planning to do some office work and then go home. But Garrett's words nagged me. If I didn't do what Rafik had asked, visit Madame Ravenskaya, then it was certain that nothing more would happen regarding Max Harkey's murder. At least nothing provoked by me, but if I did do it, if I did pay the old woman a visit and meddle a bit, what then? Arriving in front of the Appleton, I realized an odd conflict of facts and events. If Max Harkey had had the presence of mind to call Rafik Marshal Xander, the police, and God knows who else after being attacked, then why had he not identified his attacker to anyone? Had he been protecting someone? Also strange was the lack of my evidence that suggested he had tried to stop the bleeding. Had he been too consumed by panic, or had Max Harkey realized that his wounds were fatal and that nothing could save him? Or perhaps, why hadn't I seen this before? Perhaps Max Harkney had not phoned anyone. Perhaps he had been unconscious through the entire horrific episode, except for an exquisitely staged suicide. How else could a person sustain those efficient, deliberate wounds? I rang Madame's apartment and identified myself to her. She buzzed me in, and I saw that the front door latch had been repaired already. Upstairs, I pressed the button outside Madame's apartment door when a dog started barking noisily within. "Valushka! Valushka!" squealed the old woman on the other side of the door. With my innate fear of dogs, I had a feeling that Valushka and I were not going to be best of friends. Madame Ravenskaya opened the door, and the dog rushed out past her. Given Madame's Russian heritage, I'd expected to see a borzoi or an Afghan hound, but Valushka was also a mongrel bitch. She wagged her tail excitedly and ran her snout up and down my trousers, then raced back and forth through the hallway, yipping and yapping and sniffing everywhere. Madame Ravenskaya stood in the open doorway, admiring her pet's antics. "I save her," she said. "She is good girl, my little Tsarina." Madame stooped down slightly and slapped her hands. "Inside, Rushka, inside." The dog barked 2 short, sharp barks, then obeyed her mistress instantly and charged back into the apartment. I followed Madame Ravenskaya into a large sitting room of decayed imperial elegance. "Rafik sends you?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "Good, you wait here. I will bring Che." "Che?" I asked. The old woman grinned. "Tea," she said emphatically, then turned and left me alone in the room. The sitting room was a historian's dream, but a designer's nightmare. A hodgepodge of furniture and other possessions with no discernible theme, no link save that of age. The furniture looked European and from the post-war period during which modernity was adopted at the expense of good neighbor design. The collection of odd table lamps barely illuminated the gloom of the dark papered walls and the heavy window drapery. An ancient Byzantine icon with eyes saddened by the weight of the world gazed down from a high corner. On one side of the room sat a grand piano, enshrouded by a musty-smelling jacquard fabric edged with long fringe. A few musical scores lay on the music rack. I leafed through one and I saw that it had been autographed to Madame Ravenskaya by the composer. On the piano top were many framed photos. One in particular caught my eye. It was a sepia tone print of a young male dancer, a god actually, taken in half profile from behind. The man was naked. I picked up the photo and studied the finely honed muscles of the subject's backside. Here was a piece of work that engaged me. Just then I felt Valushka sniffing at my shoe. She did it gently, as if to apologize for her boorish greeting when I arrived. Without a pedigree, like me, she was at odds with the artifacts in Madame Ravenskaya's flat. Madame arrived with a tray laden with plates of food and a tall copper urn, a samovar. I felt my face redden since she had caught me in a prurient moment with the photo of a young naked man in my hand. "Is Maxie," she said as she laid down the tray. I put the photo back on the piano and went to help her. She served the chai in a tall glass. It was strong, pungent, and sweet, and floral. Along with the chai, she served cold veal sandwiches on hearty, dark rye bread, accompanied with Polish pickled mushrooms and potato egg salad. We ate quietly for a while. I was about to ask her about the attack when she put her plate down and stole the moment from me. "I tell you story about Maxie," she began. "You see, from that picture, how beautiful was his body. When Maxie was dancer at Monte Carlo, I was Le Jesus. That is, rehearsal director, you know." I nodded and glanced at her finely wrought ankles and her high insteps, which seemed constrained by the vamp of her shoes. Madame Ravenskaya continued her tale. "One time after class, I am closing studio and I hear noises in girls' dressing room. I ask myself, what is this? Someone is in here. So like cat, I go to dressing room. Quiet, quiet, soft steps. I make slowly. I move curtain to see inside, and what is in there?" She paused theatrically, and I knew to say something. Then she smiled at me with her whole face. Even her eyes shone through the gloomy atmosphere of her sitting room. She whispered, "Maxie is making love to young ballerina." Madame then placed her glass of tea on the table and exclaimed, "Poesie!" Her story was a reversal of the classic primal scene, and as if reading my thoughts, Madame said, "That is when I know I love Maxie forever. After that, he is like son to me." She sighed and shook her head, then let her breath out slowly and finished with a sad little moan. At intermission, she offered me a tray of small, flat pastries, redolent of baked apples. I took one and bit it. It crumbled in my mouth, creating a cloud of spiced fruit and buttery caramel. "You like?" Madame Ravenskaya asked. "It's delicious," I replied honestly. She smiled contentedly, pleased with her excellent culinary skills. "It's simple," she said. "Just butter and cream cheese and a little flour to hold it." The luscious melange teased at my tongue so playfully that I went to olfactory heaven. Then I recalled all too clearly the mission from which Madame Ravenskaya had cleverly distracted me with food and drink and fable. I scolded myself by being thrown so easily off the track, which is probably what accounted for my next remark, a zenith of a non sequitur. "Did you lose anything valuable?" Madame Ravenskaya looked at me as though I had just spoken a line from high church liturgy. "The mugging," I continued. "Did the attacker take anything?" The startling shift in Madame Ravenskaya's deportment would have required a lesser actress to undergo lengthy sessions in coaching and makeup, though I suppose I had provided her with a superb motivation. She made the change from nurturing Baba to victimized senior citizen. Slumped shoulders, sagging cheeks, pinched lips, weary eyes, and less time than it took to say, "Action!" "Ach!" she exclaimed. "From nowhere he come." "So it was a man?" "Of course it was a man." "Did you see him?" A sly glance from her clever eyes. "No," she said. "It all happened too fast." "Then how do you know?" "I know it was a man." "Of course," I said. I became the concerned therapist, the persona I had used when I was training at the psych clinic. It must have been terrible for you, I said, forcing warmth into my eyes. Always acting, always hiding something. Now the two of us were at an impasse. She was obviously faking hysteria, and I was just as obviously faking sympathy. The real question was, if there had really been an attack, who did it and why? And if not, why had the old woman invented the episode? It was time for some charm. Forgive me, I said. I should have been more understanding. Her face remained fixed on me. I said, tell me about your dancing career. That finally broke through her resistance. Ah, so much to tell. What you want to know? I shrugged. What did you like best? She took a deep breath and looked out into the room as though putting herself in a trance. Some stage people seem to forget when they're not on stage. I like best to watch my grandmother. She was a beautiful dancer. Assoluta. She was favorite of the Tsar. She'd used that phrase before, and I suspected that recalling her family's past glory was Madame's way of ensuring her own worthiness. She went on. I was never prima ballerina like my mother. Who is family ballerina now? It's Mariel. She will be Assoluta someday. Beautiful dancer, like my grandmother. Morel is your niece, right? Madame Ravenskaya corrected me. She is great niece. Grand niece, I thought. I asked, did you ever dance the famous roles Odette, Odelle, Aurora, Juliet? The old woman scowled. I was character dancer. I had big passion, big fire, big technique, but I was never a pretty young girl on stage, so I do my dance, and the audience loved me. I did tours en l'air, like man, big jumps too, very strong. It must have been wonderful, I said admiringly. She basked in a brief moment of former glory. Then her eyes became mischievous, and she leaned toward me. Shall I tell you a secret now? Big secret? By all means. She grinned broadly. This is how you say, my deep, dark secret. She wanted to milk the moment for suspense, but she also wanted very badly to tell me the secret. In a hushed voice, she said, I never liked stage. I never liked performance. I gave her my best anticipatory look. She continued, I like only rehearsal in class. That is where ballet is serious. Sometimes on stage is like circus. But in studio it is always... She paused to reflect, to choose the next word carefully, even though I was certain she divulged this secret often. In studio, she said, and added one more interminable pause. Studio is like church. Well, I thought, brava, point finally made. She added quickly, so I am content to be maîtresse de ballet, to serve my art and also my beloved Maxie. At his name, her eyes became watery again. It was time for me to pounce. Can I ask you a question about him? I said. About Max. Her left eyelid twitched. If it helped, she said faintly, displeased to have me ruin the effect of her solemn confession. I knew my question was going to smell of accusation. I was there, after all, supposedly to comfort her, not to provoke her, so I launched forward uncertainly. The night it all happened, did he call you for help? What you are saying? She answered sharply. Maxie called out for help? I hear nothing here. You see, it's almost soundproof. Her face was still rigid, defensive. Madame, did he telephone you? Oh, she said, as if she had finally understood my question, though I was certain she knew perfectly well what I was asking. With a little more charm on my part, she might even tell me. After a lengthy pause, during which Veloshka sneezed twice and then wrestled herself at Madame Ramskaya's feet, the old woman said simply, I don't know. Did you hear the telephone ring? She lifted her hands as though surrendering. I cannot answer your question because I was not here. Her voice had now acquired a feminine softness, which became more obvious and almost intrusive as she continued. I was staying at ballet studios that night. But you were at the dinner party. Why would you go to the dance studio? After I come home, I was taking walk with Velushka. Was that safe so late at night? I am not afraid. In Russia, there is to be afraid. Here is nothing to be afraid. Even now, I am not afraid. I couldn't agree with her 100%, but I wasn't there to discuss domestic politics. She added, You must never be afraid. I nodded in fox gratitude for her advice. She continued her diversionary tale. So Valushka and I are walking, and we come to ballet studios that night, and I decide to stay there. But why not just stay here at home? She gave me a condescending smile, as though only a great and venerable artist could understand why she had done it. Maxie hurt me very much that night. He break my heart. He gives that row for the Phoenix to young girl Elisa. It should go to my dear Morel. It is for her. So I am hurt, and I am angry, and I want to be far away from him. So I don't stay at home. An alibi, that limp needed all the hairspray in Boston to hold it up. Yet, I could almost empathize with her reasoning, with wanting suddenly to be far away from someone who has just hurt you. But my empathy stemmed from lovers' misunderstandings. What had been the real relationship between Max Harkey and Madame Mabinskaya? One thing was certain, for someone who claimed to dislike the stage so much. Madame sure put on a good show. I thanked her for her hospitality and prepared to leave. Valushka stirred and then roused herself for my departure. At the door, while I bade good night to Madame Ravenskaya, Valushka sniffed gently at my hand. I pulled away reflexively, and the dog cowered at my sudden movement. Madame Ravenskaya laughed. She will not hurt you. She is a good girl. Valushka looked up at me with big, sorry eyes. Maybe some dogs really don't bite. Life on the domestic front offered an extra challenge that night. Once home, I faced my other dearly beloved sugar baby. Under veterinary advice, I was to clean her teeth on a regular basis. I know it sounds simple, but have you ever tried to brush a cat's teeth? Cats, for all their enigmatic charm, are basically jaws and claws. To brush the teeth of such a creature is pure folly. But I had a scheme to get my girl to cooperate with me, thus saving me many dollars and sparing her a round of prophylaxis under general anesthesia. Once I'd ensnared her, I was ready to administer the implement of torture. A kitty toothbrush, dipped in crab meat juice. It worked. Sugar Baby let me brush her teeth. In fact, she tried to help, as cats are wont to do when you least desire it. She licked her chops as soon as a drop of juice hit her tongue, then poked at me with her jaw for more. It made brushing a bit more difficult, but I accomplished the entire procedure miraculously scratch-free, and I wondered about the market potential for other crab-scented cat care products. I rewarded Sugar Baby's courage with leisurely comb-out afterwards. Hell, with Rafik absent that night, any fur person would do. During the purr-filled session with my girl, I indulged in a generous martini. Mogul martinis, I believe they're called. When they're that big, and in my solitude, I recalled some advice a businessman client had once given me. When in doubt, organize. If nothing else, I was certainly in doubt. So to allay the doubt, I mentally organized the list of people I'd spoken to recently, the supposed suspects and their possible motives for killing Max Harkey. There was Marshal Xander, the wealthy Nebbish, who financed the Boston City Ballet. Since I couldn't determine his motive, I invented one, the most obvious one to me: sexual jealousy. I imagined that Max Harkey had always rejected Marshall's love on the grounds that he was straight. When Max Harkey fell in love with Tony Di Natale, perhaps Marshal Xander killed him in an uncontrollable moment. I had no evidence for any of it, but I liked the melodrama. Scott Malloy, the defensive young dancer with the nice legs and haunches, might also have killed Max Harkey out of jealousy. Not only had his girlfriend been Max's mistress, but there was also the rumor that Scott's feelings for Max had gone beyond professional adulation. Unrequited love is always a decent motive for murder. As for Elisa Cortland, she might have been seeking professional revenge for the limitations Max was putting on her career, despite her submission to his sexual demands. For another talent and sex object, Tony Di Natale, I could determine neither motive nor opportunity. Perhaps her entanglement with Rafik put her too close to see objectively. And where was her fiancé? Jason Sears. Where had he gone? Was he really on tour? My most recent exchange had been with Madame Krabinskaya, and she had certainly acted erratic and suspicious, but how could anyone who baked as well be a villain? And last but not least, dangerous only to the heart, was my errant lover, Rafik. Every person on the list had had an opportunity to kill Max Harkey, and none of them had a good alibi for their whereabouts that night. But someone was missing. Someone's face had not yet appeared in my catalog. Then, like random computer garbage, my brain suddenly recalled the musical score on Max Harkey's piano. The score with the hand-painted cover. Perhaps it was seeing similar old scores on Madame Ravenskaya's piano that had jogged that bit of information from my sluggish databank. But I couldn't remember seeing that score when I was at Max Harkey's place on the morning of the murder. Then again, I had been quite loaded the night before, so my memory could easily have been supplanted by my imagination, but I knew she might have the answer, and he was also the missing name on my mental list. Tomorrow I would find Rico, Max Harkey's devilishly cute houseboy. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.